Hello, welcome to the 225 drill class. We're going to start off with some common words to get our fingers going. Okay, ready? Both, found, end, small, eyed, word, someone, same, enough, began, run, bit, sigh, each, those, against, almost, everything, most, think, wouldn't, mom, better, play, I've, own, every, hard, remember, three, stood, live, stand, second, sorry, keep, finally, point, gave, already, actually, probably, himself, big, everyone, yes, lot, step, hey, here, light, quickly, dad, kiss, black, apple, else, soon, shoulder, table, pick. Right. I've got a number drill for you. These are titles with numbers along with public law numbers. Okay, here we go. Ready? Title 1, 1,433,588,000. Public Law 874, 51,423,401. Title 2, 128,750,000. Public Law 815, 23,947,217. Title 3, 180,250,000. Public Law 816, 34,985,389. Title 4, 1,452,796,000. Public Law 803, 65,982,238. Title 5, 2,729,483,000. Public Law 824, 27,982,238. Title 6, 9,376,004,000. Public Law 891, 42,558,322. All right, I'm going to give you a brief review with sentences. So you're going to hear the following basic briefs: and, satisfy, advertise, satisfaction, receipt, regular, and usual. All right, here are your sentences. Ready? Fred and Pete agreed to go. I purchased meat and milk. Ham and eggs go together well. I am a regular fan. Park your car in the regular space. He is a regular visitor. It pays to advertise. Why don't you advertise for help? You don't have to advertise it all over town. I think a chocolate soda would satisfy me. Spices tend to satisfy the taste buds. I hope our merchandise will satisfy your needs. We are in receipt of your message. Be sure to include your receipt. The receipt is sent separate from the bill of lading. It is unusual, or it is the usual practice. The usual fee is quite low. We advertise regularly. They demanded accord and satisfaction. His visits were on an irregular basis. The company expressed dissatisfaction with his irregular attendance. Your clock should keep regular time. You should use regular gas. All right. I've got a drill here that's called Methods of Holding Title. Okay, here we go. Parties, community property, only married spouses. Joint tenancy, any number of persons can be married spouses. Tenancy in common, any number of persons can be married spouses. Title holding trust, individuals, groups of persons, partnership, or corporations, a living trust. Community property, right of survivorship, only married spouses. Division, community property, ownership and managerial interest are equal. Joint tenancy, ownership interest must be equal. Tenancy in common, ownership can be divided into any number of interests, equal or unequal. Title holding trust, the beneficial interest in the trust is a personal property interest. The trustors who create the trust may divide the beneficial interest into any number of interests. Community property, right of survivorship, ownership and managerial interest are equal. Title, community property. Title is in the community. Each interest is separate, but management is unified. Joint tenancy. Sale or encumbrance by joint tenancy serves joint tenancy. Tenancy in common. Each co-owner has a separate legal title to his or her undivided interest. Title holding trust. Legal and equitable title is held by the trustee. Community property, right of survivorship. Title is in the community. Management is unified. Possession, community property. Both co-owners have equal management and control. Joint tenancy, equal right of possession. Tenancy in common, equal right of possession. Title holding trust, right of the possession as specified in the trust provisions. Community property, right of survivorship. Both co-owners have equal management and control. Conveyance requires written consent of other spouse or actual conveyance by deed. Separate interest is divisible by will. Joint tenancy, title is held jointly. Conveyance by one co-owner without the others breaks the joint tenancy. Tenancy in common, each co-owner's interest may be conveyed separately by its owner. Title holding trust, designated parties with the trust agreement authorize the trustee to convey property. Also, a beneficiary's interest in the trust may be transferred if allowed by the trust agreement. Community property, right of survivorship. Right of survivorship may be terminated pursuant to the same procedures by which a joint tenancy may be served. Purchaser's status. Purchaser can only acquire whole title of community, cannot acquire a part of it in community property. Joint tenancy. Purchaser will become a tenant in common with other owners in the property as to the purchaser's interest. Other owners may remain joint tenants. Tenancy in common. All the co-owners may agree to make the purchaser a joint tenant with them. Otherwise, the parties become tenants in common. Title holding trust. A purchaser may obtain a beneficial interest by assignment or may obtain legal and equitable title from the trust. Community property, right of survivorship. A purchaser can only acquire an interest in property as a tenant in common with a husband and wife, can be married spouses holding their interest as community property. Death, community property. A 1/2 interest is owned by law by the surviving spouse. The decedent first spouse may only devise their 1/2 interest. Joint tenancy. On co-owner's death, his or her interest ends and cannot be disposed of by will. Survivor owns the property of survivorship. Tenancy in common. On co-owner's death, his or her interest passes by will to devisee or heirs. No survivorship rights. Title holding trust. Successor beneficiaries may be named in the trust agreement, eliminating the need for probate. Community property, right of survivorship. Upon the death of a spouse, his or her interest passes to the surviving spouse without administration, subject to the same procedures as property held in joint tenancy. Successor's status. If passing by will, tenancy in common between devisee and surviving spouse results. Joint tenancy. Last survivor owns property. Tenancy in common. Devisee or heirs become tenants in common. Title holding trust. Denied by the trust agreement, generally the successor becomes the beneficiary and the trust continues. Community property, right of survivorship. Surviving spouse owns the property. Creditor's rights. Community property. Property of community is liable for debts of either spouse which are made before or after marriage. Whole property may be sold on execution sale to satisfy the creditors. Joint tenancy. Co-owner's interest may be sold on execution sales to satisfy creditors. Joint tenancy is broken. Creditor becomes a tenant in common. Tenancies in common. Co-owner's interest may be sold on execution sale to satisfy his or her creditors. Creditors become a tenant in common. Title holding the trust. Creditor may seek an order for the execution sale of the beneficial interest, or if the trust doesn't have a spendthrift clause, may seek an order that the trust estate be liquidated. Community property, right of survivorship. Property of community is liable for debts of either which are made before or after marriage. Whole property may be sold on execution sale to satisfy the creditors. Presumption, community property. Strong presumption that property acquired by married spouses is community. Joint tenancy must be expressly stated. Tenancy in common. Favored in doubtful cases except married spouse cases. Title holding trust. A trust is expressly created by an executed trust agreement. Community property, right of survivorship, must be expressly stated. All right. Got a little bit more time. I'm going to give you one more drill, and this focuses on lose, loss, loose, lost. So, of course, loss is L-O-S, right? Loose, it's spelled O-O, so we're going to use our A-O, L-A-O-S. Lost is L-O-F-T, and then, of course, loft, the kids climbed up into the loft, would be L-A-U-F-T. Lose, you have two choices. You can either write that as L long U-Z or L-O-Z. You have a choice there. I personally like to write it with a long U. All right, here you go. Ready? Did you lose the game, or did he lose the game? We suffered a loss and another loss and another. We lost the bolt because it came loose, and then we lost the nut. The coil wire on the car is loose, and you should repair it. He lost his wheel when the lug nut worked loose. He is lucky he didn't lose his life. If we lose the new secretary, it will be a real loss to all of us in the company. I lost my watch at the fair because the band became loose last week. It was a terrible loss to suffer, and then he had another loss. If we lose the game, it will be the third loss in a row, and we must not lose. We should not have lost the last one, but we won't lose this one. It was not a great loss to lose that loose fitting. All right, and that concludes the drill for the 225 class.